this matchup? I mean, two top 5 teams, second time they've played this season, with both times they're being in the top 5. What do you see in this matchup?
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit different because Kansas is playing a little bit differently now. They're not playing two big guys as much as they did before. It's more of a 4-guard lineup, a 4-round one. And with Maceo Teague not 100%, there'll be some adjustments for Baylor, but it'll be similar in character that both are really good man-to-man defensive teams. Both teams can switch. They do a good job protecting the rim. And it'll come down to who's able to get the shot they want and who's able to get extra possessions. You're going to have to be able to play ahead of the defense and force some turnovers. And Kansas is a good rim protecting, shot blocking team, and if Baylor can get to the offensive glass, which they do really, really well, and get some extra possessions there, that's a bonus.
Jay, what do you think about the way Baylor's played defense this year? It's kind of been their calling card.
Yeah, it's really impressive. They're a different team than they've been in the past, where there was a more length along the back line, and Baylor traditionally had played a lot of zone and been really difficult to score upon that way. And we're very good on the backboards and protecting the rim. This year, it's more of a guard-oriented team, and their guards are really they're long-armed and they're really strong and physical, and they've got some really versatile defenders, so they can switch just about every screen or exchange. And Freddie Gillespie's, I think, an excellent defender because he can move his feet. He can. They do such a good job on ball screens, and he's a good shot blocker as well, and shot changer, and rim protector, and lane protector, really. But to have Davion Mitchell, the pressure he puts on the ball, and then Mark Vidal can guard anybody. And then Gillespie sort of in the back line to erase some mistakes. That's a really formidable defense. And so they're a very good tempo control team. It's not 1,000 miles an hour, but they're good on both ends. Their spacing is really good on offense. It's just a well coached team that is sort of we first in its mentality. And the players they're not concerned. It doesn't seem like they're concerned about my shot or my points. It's a very we first team.
Jay, what do you think it's going to be like for a fan to be able to watch the broadcast, the game day broadcast, and have the game right after and see all that together?
I hope it'll be fun. I think it's going to be really fun for us because it's not going to be. It'll be a seamless transition into the show and the game, which we don't usually have. Usually the show ends and you've got hours before a game. So this is unique for us, and it'll be a lot of fun. There'll be a lot of moving parts for us, but sort of the excitement of the players warming up and getting ready for the game, and then having a traditional game day show for us. It'll be really fun. Hopefully for the crowd, it'll be a different look than they're used to, and I think it'll add a little something just to the atmosphere. But as soon as the ball is tipped up, the game, it'll be all the same. The game will take over, which it should. It'll be a really fun atmosphere, though. I've been here before. It's a great place, and but I've been told that tickets are going for a little more than face value.
What do you think Baylor should focus on offensively, attacking the basket or getting good shots?
I'm sorry?
I said, what do you think Baylor should focus on offensively, attacking the basket or from the perimeter?
Well, I mean, I think Baylor puts a lot of pressure on the rim. They do such a good job with their movement and spacing. They space the floor really well. And then Gillespie sets such good ball screens out in the slot area, and he rolls really hard to the basket. Whether he gets the ball or not, he takes the defense with him. And so if you're concentrated on the ball, and sometimes he can slip out of it, but he's rolling hard to the basket, and somebody's going to have to pick him up, and that means somebody else is going to be open. So they do a good job of finding people. It's not like Baylor hasn't always shot the ball well, but they've found ways to win. And that to me has been the greatest testament to the team is and how good they are, is that their record hasn't been about how they've shot the ball and the percentages they shoot. It's more been about their finding ways to win and winning close games. They won a ton of close games. They're a gritty, outstanding team that can win in a variety of ways. But they're going to have to do a really good job of guarding. Kansas does a great job of spacing the floor themselves, and then they do a really good job of turning the corner and getting in the lane. And they look to get the ball, get angles, and get it into Azubuike, and he's formidable. He's not going to be guardable with just one player. You're going to have to bring help on him and converge and rally to the ball. And there have been times this year where Kansas has not handled double teams in the post quite as well. So I think they're going to try to get the defense moving and then go into him where they can eliminate help getting there quickly.
Coming down the stretch of the season, is there any area or maybe a couple areas where Baylor, you'd like to see Baylor be a little bit better if they want to make a national title run and make the Final Four?
I think right now the last probably 3 weeks of the season, as you get into the postseason, the best teams are going to continue to get better, and a lot of it is going to be down to execution, but also getting healthy and players continuing to get confident. Like the most important thing going into postseason is having a fresh mind, fresh legs, and being healthy. And I don't think it matters so much, as Baylor and Kansas, are they going into the postseason with 3 losses or 2 or 1 or whatever it is. I don't think that's that big of a deal. Going into, because it's possible that Baylor and Kansas could play 4 times this year. I mean, that's a very real possibility that they could see one another again in the Big 12 championship, and they could see one another again in Atlanta. That's how good these teams are. And this year, it's funny, everybody talks about parity. We got parity. Well, I mean, right now, I think if I've got this right, since January, San Diego State, Kansas, Baylor, and Gonzaga are 52-1, and that one loss was Baylor winning at Allen Fieldhouse. I mean, that doesn't sound like parity to me. It sounds like these teams are pretty damn good, and so I wouldn't be surprised to see them play again after Saturday.
Jay, you were out in Washington with Baylor.
Oh, my press secretary just chimed in. Sorry.
So you're out in Washington with Baylor. Then lose that game. How remarkable has it been up until this point to see them win 23 straight since you left?
Yeah, you don't buy into the announcer jinx, do you? That because I was there, they lost, and because I say that somebody's a good free throw shooter, they miss the next free throw. Dan Shulman and I have had that discussion a little bit. I mean, Baylor led the Washington game in Alaska for, I think, if I remember, 38 of the 40 minutes. And they didn't finish the game as well as they wanted to. And Washington was full strength back then. They had Quade Green at point. They're a different team now without him. But you could see right there that Baylor was going to be really good. Now, did I anticipate they'd win 23 in a row after that? No. But it's been remarkable, and this is an outstanding team. So the more they win, obviously, the less surprised you are that they continue to win. But there's one thing that's great about, of the many things that's great about basketball, this is one of them. If you lose a game and everybody loses, it's not football. It doesn't relegate you to some bowl game somewhere else. You get a chance to play in the tournament, and they're going to be both these teams are either going to be 1 or 2 seeds without question. 2 seed is the lowest they're going to be, and that puts them in a position to both Kansas and Baylor to win a national championship, and to be able to be in the Farrell Center and see 2 national championship contenders square off is a pretty good thing. That's a pretty good thing for February.
Look, I'm really excited to be here. I think this is going to be an incredible game. 1 versus 3. Baylor having a chance to win the Big 12 championship. The way they play, I love this Baylor team. They remind me of an old school Big East team, quite honestly. Now, you don't know what an old school Big East team is, but they are physically, mentally tough. They have a great respect for each other. They defend every single possession. They play to their strengths, which I think is really the most impressive thing. And they play without ego. And what I mean by that is, like Mark Fowler, if he doesn't get a shot, he doesn't get a shot. They don't want to play for him. They don't want to play for Gillespie. They create their own opportunities. They're great screeners. They're great rollers. They're great offensive rebounders. They run the floor consistently. It's an anomaly in college basketball to have people play with that little of an ego and just play to win. It's an anomaly where guys play to their strengths. They don't expose what they don't do well. They do what they do well. defensively, they're as connected a team as there is in the country. In studying for the game, I did a couple tapes for SportsCenter this week, and I could have picked 50 plays where they are so connected defensively. They put that offensive player right on their chest. They contain the ball in the perimeter, which is so important because if you can guard the ball, now you're not in rotation, and that makes it easier for everyone. They're a terrific ball screen defensive team. They can switch. The first Kansas game, they did a good job of fighting around as a Buki and getting them off the block a little bit and giving backside help. Now, this will be a different game because Kansas is playing small more. And by playing small more, they have another shooter and another playmaker on the court. So where are you going to give your help from? That's going to be interesting. I think Scott calls his weak side guy the hole guy, the guy that's in the weak side. They're going to have to be the hole guy and also play the skip pass, and that guy now can shoot it or drive it. So that's going to make it a little bit more difficult, but not impossible, obviously. Pace of the game will be interesting. I think that it's really important for Baylor to take Kansas out of transition because in transition on the advanced pass, what happens is you see Devon Dotson get in transition, and when he gets in transition, he's so explosive and so quick, it's hard to contain him. You can guard him if you can keep him in front of you. He's harder to guard, obviously, when he's got space in the open floor. I think the team reflects Scott. I think that Scott has a quiet toughness about him. He never gets too high, never gets too low. He's very consistent with them, and that's the way their team plays. Their team is very consistent. I mean, they just get to the next play, and that's kind of a mentality. Good teams have a next play mentality, and good teams don't get out of whack. Like, the Oklahoma game was a perfect example. Oklahoma gave them a little push, pressure on them, everything going on, thinking that Kansas is the next game, and those guys just continued to play. And I think that's an incredible reflection of Scott and his relationship with those kids, the trust they have in each other and the trust they have in the coaching staff. How he's built this program is incredible. I mean, look at the makeup of their team. UNC Asheville transfer, Division III transfer, an Auburn transfer, player development, red shirts. It really is an interesting way that he's been able to do this. But they are really good, and that's why we're here. And I think this could be the best game so far this season. I mean, this is good. This is a high-level, big-time game of two teams that can win a national championship.
You talked about the makeup of the team, but how valuable are those experience transfers that Coach Drew is able to bring, particularly here to Baylor?
Well, they're grown men. I mean, the difference is, I joke around. I have players in the country. I call them all grown men team. And then I have my Mariano Rivera team, the guys that are the best closers. And Jared Butler might be on my Mariano Rivera team, but they're grown men. When you sit out a year, you're a year older. You're stronger. You appreciate it more. You miss the game. You learn a lot. They're an older team, and older teams are teams that have substance. Older teams have shared experiences. Older teams appreciate the journey a little more. They're not as enabled. Their expectation is not maybe what say a top 10 high school kid coming in where you have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I mean, every player on this team has both feet in. And that to me, that's really important. Like, I always do this thing about the one and done guys. Great to have one and done guys. But the schools that only have one and done, whether it's LSU with Ben Simmons or Markelle Fultz or you see Anthony Edwards, all those guys, they're not even in the NCAA tournament. You need guys that have both feet in, that are willing to be the best version of themselves in relation to their team, and that's what having these older guys is for Baylor.
What are some of the national big picture ramifications from this game? Jay comes in here and says that they're both going to be top 2 seeds and could play 4 times this year. That's not something we're usually saying about 2 Big 12 teams.
I think they're both going to be number 1 seeds unless something drastic happens. I would be shocked that both of these guys aren't number 1 seeds. I mean, Duke lost the other day. They were kind of one of the teams that are emerging. I think it would be hard to put Dayton in front of one of these teams. Maybe if they win out, Dayton's a good team. But these teams have separated themselves. They've got 10 quad 1 wins, if I'm not mistaken, both of these teams, right? Who has that? I mean, they've won on the road. We joke and we don't joke. We talk about no great teams this year. I was in Alaska for the Armed Forces Classic game, a game that Baylor should have won. They should be an undefeated team. Well, if they were an undefeated team at this point of the year in this conference with the schedule they played, I think people would say they're a great team. So I think both of these teams are going to be number 1s. I think both of these teams can win a national championship. I do think that Kansas is a lot better right now in this moment in time than what they were the last time they played. But I think Baylor is better also. The one thing is Baylor can go times when they can't make shots in Big 12 play, but Big 12 basketball is the antithesis of Big 12 football. See, in Big 12 football, everyone scores. In Big 12 basketball, no one scores. So, I mean, it's kind of the way it is. I mean, the defense in the Big 12 is incredible. In fact, I'm surprised that some of the football coaches aren't hiring some of the basketball coaches to be defensive coordinators.
Looking forward to the
Last question.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the NCAA tournament. What team in the country do you think would give Baylor the most trouble?
I think the best team, but it'd be interesting. The antithesis of Baylor is probably Gonzaga because they're so skilled up front. Obviously, Baylor is skilled in the backcourt. That would be an interesting matchup. I'll tell you what would be a heck of a game. San Diego State and Baylor would be a heck of a game. I know you guys probably don't know San Diego State. Why wouldn't you be naming Duke or someone? San Diego State defends you. They're physical. They're mature. They've got great guard play. Any of the top 5 or 6 teams. I mean, this year is crazy. I mean, I was joking. What was the game I was watching the other day? And I text Reese and these guys. I said, if so-and-so, I think it was a Louisville game that I text you guys. If Louisville loses to Clemson, I know nothing about basketball. So, of course, Clemson beat Louisville, and I know nothing about basketball. So you should be talking to Fonz. Yeah, I think there are a number of teams. I mean, I think there are 10, 12 teams that could win it all this year. But I think the teams that have separated themselves, the Baylor, the Kansases, the Gonzagas, the San Diego States, those teams are for real. But everyone's been so inconsistent. And that validating wins, that's the thing that Baylor's been able to do. Like, NC State beat Duke the other night. Like, I talked to Kevin Keats, their coach, right after the game. I said, you know what your biggest challenge is? Validate this win. You know, like, because your guys are walking across campus, everyone's going, hey, you beat Duke, that's great. You're back in the tournament. No, you're not. There's a lot of basketball to be played. Go validate the win. Baylor's validated their wins all season long. And that's impressive. Thanks.
So I've known Scott Drew forever, it seems like, and obviously with the success that this team has had this year, and as much as I've talked about him since November, it's going to be neat for me to take in the atmosphere tomorrow, obviously playing against one of the top teams in the country.
You talked about knowing Scott Drew for a long time. How have you seen him evolve as a coach from early on till where he is right now?
Well, I mean, when you look at what the program was like 17 years ago when he took it over, and what he's been able to transform it into, and that's a national power. And it's been significant, and I think a small microcosm of that is just last year. All of a sudden, Tristan Clark gets hurt, he goes down. And all of a sudden, in his brilliance, his genius, he decides to play a little small ball. They went on a little run, obviously didn't finish the season the way that he would have liked to, but actually brought that into the season this year. A team that's been predominantly kind of more zone, 1-1-3 zone than man, now exclusively a man team, and he's won with that. And so I've said probably for the last couple of years, this is my 11th season at ESPN, that he is one of the most underrated coaches in all of college basketball, and I'm glad that they're the #1 team in the country, because now maybe he'll start to get some of that praise that he really deserves.
Why do you think that man-to-man has worked so well for them?
They have four terrific guards, and then so you have 4 terrific guards who do a great job of keeping the ball in front. When you happen to slip by them, Mark Vito and Freddie Gillespie are great at walling up and having them make an extra move, change of direction or change of speed. And then by that time, now the defense is caught up. So you're almost always taking a contested jump shot or a contested layup. And obviously contested jump shots and layups, the percentages go way down compared to when you're obviously wide open. And there's a connectedness to it, because I watched them, even especially during the Kansas game. There were a couple breakdowns along the way, but then the communication, hey, guys really covering for each other. And for a guy who had the privilege of playing 4 years in college and 11 years in the NBA, I really value the breakdowns and the communication that happens during the breakdown to make sure you're covering to make a team take a contested shot. And I think that's what makes this group so special.
Someone that played 4 years in college basketball, how important is that experience, especially when you start getting into late season and tournament time?
Yeah, it's very valuable and important, and the reason is by the time you're kind of late sophomore year, particularly junior and senior, you've seen it all. And so whether you're up 5 or down 5 with 5 minutes to go, you're not worried because you've been through the trenches before. You have a group of guys that when you've been down, you've been able to battle back and win games in the trenches, as we've seen Baylor do so much this year. And so that experience, and I think that's really going to help them in an NCAA tournament because we've seen the cooler shooting from the perimeter, and can you keep your calm and your peace knowing that you can make it up on the defensive end, and that's why I think this team is going to be so good in the NCAA tournament.
Alfonso, what do you think as a fan tomorrow? You get to watch the broadcast and the game.
Yeah.
What's that going to be like for a fan, and might we see finally somebody make a half-court shot?
It would be awesome to see somebody finally make a half-court shot, but it's going to be awesome. I hear that the lower bowl tickets and the aftermarket are going like for $1,000. That's insane. And the place is going to be packed and hopping because usually we do our college game day Eastern time from 11 to noon, and then our marquee game is not until 4 or 6. Well, tomorrow we're actually carrying our show right into the game, so the place is going to be lit. I'm looking forward to taking that all in.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I like Baylor.
Thank you.